There is so much to talk about on this topic. I'm going to try not to take questions so that I can get through the content. But if you have any specific things that you want me to consider, and reach out to you later, you're welcome to put that in the chat, send it my way, and I'll look at it. Okay. So travel on foreign nationals is very tricky because there is so much involved. At the same time, it is a big part of their life, and I'm actually in the midst of moving right now, and it's difficult. And for them, all the family is behind, so the issue of travel is going to come up all the time. And I'm grateful for you for being here and trying to understand this. I'm going to be giving you like high level considerations, things that we know, but they're not necessarily things that you would, that you almost have to be in the field to know and understand the consequences of some of the things. So I'm going to touch on commonly used work visas, mostly so that you can have a framework as to the visas that I'm going to be talking about and how they apply. Pre-travel considerations, which is huge. It's like anything else, is how proactively you do things. Then things tend to work out a little better because you can take into the consideration and take care of some of the things that could become problems later on. Understanding visa stamping. So what does that mean when foreign national says, oh, I have to go home, I need to go for visa stamping? I'm going to particularly talk about the H-1B stamping because it's the one that comes up the most often. It's because it's the most commonly used work visa. And also mitigating risk of international travel, and that also kind of goes back into the pre-travel considerations. We're here. We're going to try to be here only for 30 minutes. And that's what I envisioned this. So come in with me. I also have a little bonus for you, something that I did not advertise, but I know that it's you're all busy and you're taking the time to be here with me. So I'm going to talk about a little piece that was not part of the program, but I wanted to give you something as a bonus for being here. So come to me for 30 minutes. Many of you, well, I kind of started saying this right at the beginning when I started. Every case is unique. So know that what I'm going to be talking about is very general. And if you have specific questions on your cases, you're a client of ours, please reach out. But I will give you examples of things that happen, that is good for you to know. I'm a U.S. corporate immigration attorney. That is all I do. I don't do anything else, any other practice of law. Almost 20 years now, and I am grateful to work with the employers. Our clients, I always say they're the best in the world. You're making our economy better, our country stronger, and you take care of foreign nationals, your family. And I just very, very honored to work with all of you. I'm also an immigrant, so two-time immigrant and an endurance athlete, which is kind of what I think allows me to do this with all the complexity and the craziness that goes in the immigration world. So I am honored to use my energy and my passion to help all of you. I'm also on LinkedIn. If you want to connect with me there, I would love to connect with you there. Okay. So I love interaction. It makes it a lot more fun for you and me. And also lets me know the gauge, did being here for 30 minutes raise your knowledge. So let me know right now. Give yourself a grade from 1 to 10. 10 high, 1 low. What would you consider your level of knowledge, comfort level about travel and those that you have that are on work visas or green card process? So give me numbers on the chat. From 1 to 10, what do you think your level of knowledge is, your comfort level? My goal, again, is to move that up over the 30 minutes that you're here with me. Give me a few more numbers. So I want to, that also gives me a sense that you're kind of paying attention. So that is kind of my feedback of, yes, I'm with you. Okay, a few more. Just have 3. There's more of you here. One more and I move on. Nobody else is willing. This is good for you too, to kind of know how you're feeling at the end of this. All right. Commonly used work visas. So again, you are actually going to get, and Danny is here with me, so you're going to get a copy of this as part of the resources that you get from the webinar. But these are primarily, what I'm going to be talking about primarily touches this visas, the H-1B, the O, the L, the E3, and the TNs. There's a lot more work visas out there, but these are the ones that you're probably the most familiar with and that you're going to be touching the most. So that is why I'm concentrating on this. Pre-travel considerations. So starting from the basics, foreign national has a passport. They have a visa stamp. That visa stamp is what allows them to come in and out of the country. That is the whole purpose of the visa stamp. They come in, well, actually, literally come in. They don't need it to go out. For you all, and for the foreign national, one of the most important things to know, particularly for the foreign national, is the expiration date. And I will go into a lot more detail as to how that comes into play. So expiration date that is here, also the type of visa. Sometimes, believe it or not, they get it wrong in the consulate. They apply for an H-1B, but they got a stamp as an H-4 or who knows what. So I also have a slide that talks about the various things that foreign nationals need to know when they get that visa stamp back to make sure that they are getting the correct stamp. But this is, you probably have seen this before. This is the visa stamp is not an I-9 document. Sometimes when I'm doing I-9 compliance audits, I see that the employer accepted a visa stamp as a work authorization document. That is not, you cannot do that. This is only to allow the foreign national to come into the country. This is going to happen, this visa, and that's why I kind of started with just the visa stamp. When the foreign national changes status, like it's going to happen for many right now as we going through the H-1B cap season. Many of them are on an F1 status. They're a student on either STEM OPT, OPT, CPT, whatever, a form of F1. So their visa stamp is going to have the category as F1, and it's going to have an expiration, which would have been the expiration for their duration of their studies. When they transfer, when their H-1B gets approved and they change a status from an F1 to an H-1 in October 1st, it happens seamlessly. It happens at USCIS. It happens in the SEVIS systems, which is the system that the universities use to track their statuses. It does not happen automatically on their visa stamp. So their visa stamp will still be stamped as an F, even though their category now is an H-1B visa. And that is okay. I get this question asked a lot. What is going to happen with my visa stamp? My visa stamp expires or is going to expire. As long as they're in the country, it doesn't matter if they have an H-1 stamp or if they have that doesn't matter. Now, if they're going to travel home during the holidays in December, they're not going to be able to come back on an F1 because they're no longer in F1 status. So that's why it's called, when we do the H-1Bs, we're doing them as change of status for most of them so that they don't have to travel abroad to come into the United States October 1st on their H-1B status. They're going to continue to be on H-1B status. And when they leave the country to go home the next time, whether it's during the holidays in December, whether it's next year for a wedding or whatever it is, that is the time that they're going to have to plan stamping in their passport in their home country so that they can come back into the United States. And when they come back, that visa stamp should be annotated H-1B. Questions so far? Okay. This passport expiration is something else that is really, really important. And what happens is when they come in through the port of entry, so the CBP is going to give them, so their visa stamp does not determine how long they can be in the United States. It's their I-94 record that determines how long they can be in the United States. When they change status to H-1B in October, when we receive the approval notices, you're going to see that at the bottom of the approval notices, there's a little paper I-94. And that is what you use as HR professionals to verify that they're now in H-1 status. When they're coming through the border, say they have an H-1B visa stamp that they just got in the consulate in India when they went home for the holidays. But their passport, for some reason, well, not for some reason, typically passports expire after 5 years, after 10 years. So say their passport expires in January of 2025. They just got an H-1B visa in October, an H-1B status in October for 3 years. But if their passport expires in January of 2025, what that border officer is going to say or do is that they're going to give them an authorized stay only to the end of their passport. So your 3-year H-1B now becomes a 4-month H-1B. Okay, and this is key. This passport expiration, they need to keep track of their passport expiration. They need to know that when it needs to be renewed, it needs to be renewed, because the border, when they're coming into the country, the passport should be valid for at least 6 months beyond the employee intended to stay in the United States. So for example, October, those H-1Bs are going to be good for 3 years. That passport ideally should be valid for 4 years or 3.5 years so that they get the full amount of time when they come into the United States. If they don't, and the passport expiration shortens their stay, they're going to likely have to go back abroad and, well, renew their passport and then go back abroad to Canada or Mexico and re-enter so that they can get the full validity. So this is complicated. I'm actually considering doing a workshop on this, and I'll talk to you individually, or just let me know if this is something that you're interested, because it can get very complicated. But this is the high level. Again, passport, visa stamp. And this is the I-94 record that I just talked to you. So this is the one that CBP provides at the border. Well, actually, they used to provide a little white card. They don't do that anymore. They do an electronic record. And again, the validity can be shortened if their passport is expiring sooner rather than later, let's say. So passport renewal considerations: should renew before they travel if possible. They can be renewed in the United States, it depends on the country, or abroad. It can be time consuming these days with the repercussions of COVID and everything else that is happening. Sometimes passports are taking a year to get renewed. So being proactive is really, really essential. Now, for you HRs, you're probably not going to go around and ask your foreign nationals, or you may, who knows, their passport expiration, but you can certainly say, hey, I attended this presentation from Giselle, and she just really mentioned that it's very important that you keep your passport up to date and renewed. So, you can pass that tip along. Okay, understanding visa stamping. So now we have this foreign worker that went from F1 status to H-1B, does not have an H-1B visa stamp in their passport, and they need to, when they travel home, they're going to have to go for visa stamping. That's kind of what they call it. So it's consular processing. That's how I call it sometimes. Most Indian nationals call them visa stamping. And visa stamping is a visa stamp in the passport. It has many, many annotations. But the ones, and I put in here for the applicants, they really should make sure that when they get their visa stamp back, that they check all the annotations. They check their name, they check their date of birth, they check the visa type, they check whatever other annotations. So it may say, authorized to work for this employer or whatever. And again, the expiration of the visa stamp, which is typically, now this expiration typically matches the validity of their status. So if it is an H-1B approval notice, then the consulate would look at that H-1B validity date, and that's what will get a stamp on the visa. Consular processing has many steps to it. So many of you have worked with us, or we've worked with you, or your foreign nationals on the consular processing. So in order for that foreign national to get that visa stamp, this process needs to typically begin while they're in the United States before they go, because it takes time. And typically there is not enough time for them to do it from their home country because they typically go for 2 weeks, max, sometimes 3 weeks. And to get an appointment or to get past the process, sometimes it can take 4 weeks, 5 weeks. So it really needs to begin before they plan on going abroad. We're also going to send you the infographic that we have. So what I'm going through here is an infographic we created to facilitate the understanding of this process. So you will get a copy of this. It starts with, they cannot start the consular processing until their H-1B petition has been approved. Many of them, they're anxious to do this, and their timeline is short, and they want to start a consular process before they even have an approval from USCIS. That shouldn't be the case, because again, you can spend a lot of time doing this and have other issues. So typically, and also they cannot consular process without the approval. So typically when the approval is received, and if they're planning on going, so again, for example, someone their H-1B, by the way, for those of you that are on the call today, and that are our clients or not, that you're part of this H-1B visa process, yesterday, I'll have to give kudos to the team. We got the first H-1B cap approval in the mail. And that was one that was filed 2 weeks ago without premium process. That just got approved. Yes, thank you. I was in heaven. We got that, and we got 7 receipts without. But that's because this is what happens when you're proactive. We have done it. I mean, we created goals internally as to let's file half of them by the end of April. That's what we did. All of our caps were filed by the end, but half of them were filed by the end of April, and then we filed the last. I think we still have 5 in the office or so, but we're moving them pretty quickly, and yeah, it's awesome. So anyway, back to the topic. Those that are getting approved now, they turn H-1B status in October 1st, and let's say again that they're going home for the holidays in December. Most likely, I would recommend to begin this process in November, at least, or even sometimes before, depending, because December, a lot of people travel and the consulates are very busy and appointments are very difficult to get. So the first part of the process, again, receive the USCIS petition approval. Then the foreign national goes into the Department of State website. They complete the DS-160, which is basically an online visa application. They pay the fees for the visa application, and then after all of that has been done, they can go in and see if there is an appointment available, or if they're available to use something called the Dropbox appointment, which is something that has become more of a routine practice, because they mail in their information, their documents, but it's discretionary. Not everybody can do it, and there's criteria for it. But that also still that is available. So if they're able to do a drop box, they don't have to go for an in-person interview. Regardless, they have to gather documents one way or the other. They go to the consular appointment, or they do the drop box, and then they receive their passport back. And typically this whole process, again, can take anywhere from 2 weeks to 3 to 4 to 5 to an indefinite amount of time, as I will talk about. This is another slide that is probably very important for all of you, because this is where the foreign nationals come to you, and it's like, I want to travel home, and we're in the middle of a process. This happens all the time. I want to go home for the holidays. I want to go home for whatever. And we just file, or we're going to file an extension or a transfer or a change of status. I put here at the bottom, in general, for all scenarios, whether it's an extension, a transfer, change of a status, it is best not to travel without an approval in their hands. So whenever the travel comes up, and we're in the middle of one of these processes, I'm not a proponent of premium processing. I only recommend premium when it's necessary, and it may be necessary if they think that the travel is necessary. If not, I'm going to suggest that they stay in the United States until their approval, the approval happens. But there are situations where they could travel, and really the only one that I would say that they could travel without an approval in hand is if we're filing an H-1B extension and under certain circumstances. So say, for example, the current H-1B that they're on expires 4 months from now, okay? So they still have 4 months of H-1B status, but at the end of those 4 months, we're going to extend for the next 3 years. And they want to travel now in May or April or whatever. Well, they still have 4 months on their current H-1B, and we did file that H-1B extension. Well, they have a visa stamp in their passport that is current, because it should match the current approval notice, and they still have a pretty good reason to come back to the United States, because they still have 4 months of work authorization on that current H-1B. So under that situation, they could travel abroad. We could file the extension. They could do their travel. They can come back. And at the port of entry, they're going to be able to come in because they have an approval. They have the current approval notice, and they also have their H-1B stamp. And the extension that was filed, by the time they come back in, is going to be, it will be adjudicated after. But again, this is a could. And it's there just because when I was preparing this yesterday, I was like, oh my God, Danny, there is not could, should, whatever, everything I had to know, because it's so risky. So my general advice is don't travel unless you have a petition pending, if approved. But in that situation, could be possible. If we're doing a transfer, say you're transferring a new employee to you that already has an H-1B, I would not travel during that transfer. That transfer should be premium if a travel needs to happen. And if they're changing status, again, like right now, how many times have they asked me, well, my H-1B has been approved, for example, hopefully a few of those H-1Bs that we filed are going to be approved. Actually, all of them should be approved before October 1st. And I get the question, well, now that my H-1B is approved, can I travel? I'm like, no, because your H-1B was approved as a change of a status, meaning you're in the United States, you're changing status to H-1B. If you travel, that change of a status gets abandoned, and they're not going to be able to come back in. Okay, so when there is a change of a status, no. Okay. I know I can go on, and there's so many, but I wanted to give you like the big picture, okay? Here, I'm going to sprinkle in a few success stories in here. So this was when you go to the consulate, There is also RFEs at the consulate, requests for additional evidence. And those are kind of unique because sometimes they're worse than USCIS, because at least USCIS sends those 12-page document with all the crazy stuff that they want. At the consulate, what they do is they put a note that says 221G, and that's it. And you have no idea of what is going on and why there is a 221G. Basically, 221G is, we have some concerns and we're just taking our time to, it's administrative processing. And it can be cost because what they put on their DS-160 doesn't match what was filed on the H-1B or for all kinds of reasons. So we work. When something like this happens, quite often we're not involved in the process until something like this happens. And then it's when we're called in. And then we have to work through and try to figure out why was the 221G issued and how can we communicate with the consulate and all that kind of stuff. Thankfully, in a lot of our cases, the cases move forward. We respond to whatever the concerns are, similar to an RFE. But I put this here just to let you know that every so often, in your cases, you're going to see this, a 221G administrative processing. Okay, your attendance bonus is here. So everything that I have talked to so far is about non-immigrant work visas. So your H's, your O's, your L's, your TNs, your E3s. When the person starts in a green card process, it's a little different. So they still have to keep their visa stamp and everything that we have talked about is good. But now we also have a green card process to deal with, okay? The rules with the green card process and travel are a little bit more, to some degree, more straightforward. As long as, again, you took care of the H-1B or the work visa situation, when we're in a green card process, if they're in a step 1 of the green card process, which is the PERM process, labor certification process, they can travel in and out, not a problem. It will not affect the green card process. And I get that question a lot. Okay, and you're gonna file my prevailing wage determination, or you're gonna file my PERM. Can I travel? Yes, you're good. For as long as we're in step 1, we're good. Step 2 is the I-140 petition, the immigrant petition that the employer files on behalf of the foreign national. It's the equivalent of the I-129. When we're in an I-140, quite often they're still okay to travel. In general, it just depends on the underlying visa. But if it is an H or if it is an L, they're probably okay. If it is a TN or any of the other ones that do not have immigrant intent, then we have to be more cautious as to when that person travels. The only time that is a no travel is after we file an adjustment of status, which is the last step of the green card process. So we already passed the labor certification, certified, we have an I-140, it's approved. Now we got to the adjustment of status, I-485. That is when there is no travel abroad, because if you leave or they leave, they are abandoned the process. And that, we tell them that all the time, just do all the travel you need before we get to the adjustment of status. So that was your little bonus. Hopefully it resonates because you have heard it. Yeah. Mitigating risk of international travel. So what can we do? Proactive planning. Again, you've heard me say that a few times now. Visa appointment wait times are all over the place, all over the world. So they really, really have to go in and make sure that the times are available for when they want to. They cannot wait until the last minute, which is quite often what happens. Staying up to date on current policies and what is going on from reliable sources. I just had a conference call with a foreign national and their employer a week ago, or Monday, I think. And of course, the foreign national was telling me about everything that he had signed off for all these blogs, TN blogs, and everything that he was reading and that what he could do. And I'm like, no, 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 no. If you do that, you're going to be working undocumented. So reliable sources, they're very good. And I pay attention to what they say because I don't have time to follow all these blogs. And so I listened, but I also kind of go, whoa, that's not, we cannot go there. Pre-travel check-ins with you, pre-travel check-ins with us if we're involved. What's going on? What are the plans? Have you got your appointment? Da da da. And then travel policies. This comes up a lot. Are you set up for them to work abroad? Say that they have a problem and they have to stay abroad, not 2 weeks, but a month. Can they work from abroad for 2 weeks? Can they work abroad for 3 weeks? Those are kind of the kind of things that you do need to think about. Another kind of success story in a way, this was a Dropbox in Australia, and that is actually what prompted me to do this working from abroad policy, because this foreign national went to Australia to process his C3 at the end of the year last year. Of course, right in the middle of the holidays, he left the United States like December 15th, did not check for appointments, and then when he got to the consulate in Australia, there were no appointments until, I think, January 15th. So, of course, we got involved with plan, da, da, da. At the end of the day, his E3 got approved and he was back in the United States, but arrangements had to be made for him to work from abroad so that everything could keep going. How to mitigate the risks? Again, this I'm kind of just consolidating some of what I've talked about before. The passport validity is key. Valid work visa stamp. So when they come back into the United States, and typically they need a copy of the approval notice, not the actual approval notice. And then the reentry document, that I-94, they need to check when they come in to make sure that it's stamped correctly. Legal support, this is just for you to know. We have a 3-tier consular processing service because this comes up again all the time. Some companies cover it, sometimes companies don't cover it. It depends the reasons, but we have this because quite often it eliminates a lot of the issues, the things that they're not thinking about. So we offer the tier 1 is a very basic, $400 per applicant, just general questions about the process. $600 is a little bit more involved where we actually review the DS-160. We provide guidance on the DS-160 and we provide guidance. I mean, for a minimal cost, we do a lot for $600. That's the one that many take. And then when you have, particularly with your executives and whatnot, people that require a lot more hand-holding and literally we're working on one right now, but the time of that person is much better spent doing what they need to do and they're getting paid to do than trying to deal with the electronic system. We literally got an email from this for national, the client's paying, it's $3,000 because it's a full package. And we've already been in a computer with him, redid the application because he was having trouble. So just to know that is what is available to your foreign nationals or to you. TNs, this is good for you to know because we are seeing more TN processing just because of the inability to obtain an H-1B, but it's only available for Canadians and Mexicans. And the process is getting extremely complicated. Foreign nationals will come to you and say, oh, no, I just need a letter and I just can take it to the border and we'll be fine. Well, not so. That's not what is happening right now. And in fact, when we have TN visa processings, we're actually going to prep you or whoever the person that's going to get the phone call from the border, because that's what they're doing now. And the foreign national, we prepare everybody so that it's as smooth as possible. Okay. I cover a lot. Has your level of knowledge, not of, you may be a little bit more scared now than before. I don't know. But what is your level of knowledge now versus at the beginning? Give me a few numbers. I want to know that we've made some progress. Okay, yes, that was a lot. That was a lot. Okay. Yeah, and I'm not doing this so that you don't call me. We're here for you. I just want to give you more, more confidence when they come to you and they ask you questions that you can kind of say, yeah, I think I heard Giselle talk about this. It's not like you're. Okay, also that, just tell me while I go through my slides here, because I really, yes, thank you, thank you, thank you. Was this helpful? And was there anything that you say, oh my gosh, I'm glad that I learned that? Just give me a few. Cool, I like that, thank you. Okay, there is a lot more. Yeah, good. I don't know if you know, but I do have a YouTube channel. There's like 80 videos in there. In fact, that most likely this is going to go in there at some point. So you can, use your phone if you want and scan and subscribe, or go there, and and it's getting better organized. So it's another good resource for you to use. You can always email me. You don't have to use the QR code, but if you have other questions, you can use the QR code. Again, this is just to give you confidence. What is next? So what I'm doing now is I'm doing a webinar once a month, something like this, short, give you basic knowledge. And I'm also doing a Q&A that I record, and it's going to be sent next week, all about travel. Can my H-1B worker travel overseas after his H-1B extension of his file? After the H-1B petition is approved, they need to travel abroad to obtain an H-1B visa stamp? Can they process a visa stamp in Mexico or Canada? Now, you should know the answer to some of these now, but if you're also going to hear me say it on the Q&A. And that's it. Thank you so much for being here with me. Thank you for interacting. And yes, we are here for you. So have a beautiful end of Wednesday, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.